Hey everybody, it's Mitch Tram here. Today we're going to go through the process of cooking our pork spare ribs using the 3-2-1 method. I have some spare ribs here already seasoned up. I've already removed the membrane. If you want to know how to do that, there are two short videos, one on pulling the membrane, one on seasoning the ribs. So, feel free to check those out. I'll attach them to the back of this video so you can see that at the end. I'm going to go ahead and take my ribs here and I'm going to put them on my cookie sheet here to carry them out. And for those of you guys that aren't familiar with the 3-2-1 method, what it is we're going to cook the ribs for 3 hours without anything covering them, just straight on the pit so they can absorb smoke for about 3 hours. Then we're going to wrap them in foil with some moisture for about 2 hours. And then we'll pull them out of the foil and we'll let them smoke for another hour to kind of firm back up. So the first 3 hours is really to get the color on them and get the smoke on them. So let me get my ribs here and we'll go out to the pit and we'll talk just a bit more. All right, everybody. Well, we're back at the pit now and we're gonna put our ribs on here. And so I'm going to open my pit, and I just want to show you something here. My pit's running at about 250. You can see this temp gauge right here. So we want to keep that temperature somewhere between 250 and like 275 optimally for these first 3 hours. All right, so I got my pit opened up here. And we want to take the thicker side of the ribs right here. And I want that thicker side of the ribs to go towards the firebox, the hotter side. So the thicker part right here towards the hotter side of the fire. Now, we will check on these periodically to see how things are going along. And I do keep a temperature probe on the grate so I can see what the grate temperature is. And you can see that right there. And that's remote, so from inside I can see what my temperature is doing. And also on my lifetime pit here, the temperature is a little different between the top thermometer and the actual grate temp, so that just helps me, and I like it. It definitely helps me keep my temperature right where I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down. And then I cleaned my grate just a moment ago with an onion, right? And that's what I prefer to clean my grate with. And I will throw the onion on the fire because that actually adds a little bit of flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that on there too. So just a hint there. And from a smoking perspective today, we're going to be using pecan. And for ribs, my preference is pecan. And I will use pecan for the first 3 hours to get that smoke flavor on it. And if I want to use another wood with pecan, I like mesquite. And I have a little bit right here, it's a couple pieces. Mesquite to me really complements the pecan better than other woods in my opinion. But from a smoking standpoint, when you're doing ribs, it's really up to you, whatever wood you like. For me, pecan is my favorite on ribs. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and stop us here. We'll be back in an hour or two to kind of look at the ribs and see how they're coming along. All right, so our ribs have been on about an hour so far. We're going to take a look at them. And just let me show you the temp here. So that temp is showing about 200 degrees. But if we look at the actual grate temp, you can see that that temp is 253. So that's the importance of knowing what your grate temperature is. Let's just take a look and see what these guys look like. They look good. They're starting to cook. Just a matter of time now. Been on, like I said, about an hour. A couple more hours, they'll have a nice color to them and we'll be ready to wrap them. All right, we'll be back here when it's time to wrap. In about 2 more hours, we'll check back in. All right, our ribs have been out here about 3 hours. Let's take a look at them and pick them up, and we're going to take them inside and wrap them. So you can see that the ribs themselves, they have a nice color to them. They have a nice smoke
You know, they've gotten that smoke on them, got a nice color to them. The bones aren't popping yet, and they're still very, very firm. So we're going to take these inside, we're going to wrap them, we're going to bring them back, and we're going to let them cook for a couple more hours after wrapping them. Alright, so I'll see you guys inside in just a second.
All right, so we've got our ribs inside. I've went ahead and moved them from the cookie sheet where I brought them in onto the foil that we're going to wrap them in. So you need a piece of foil that's bigger than the ribs that you can wrap the ribs up in. And they're going to cook this way for 2 hours in the foil, and it's basically going to braise them and make them start to get nice and tender. You'll know when they're ready when you start seeing the bones pop out of the ribs. So I'm going to go ahead and focus down here. And I've laid my ribs upside down. A little piece of onion right there, onion skin. But I've laid my ribs upside down on this foil. And you can put your ribs upside down or right side up. So in other words, bone side up or bone side down. I do it both ways. This time I have bone side up. And then you can put things in here if you want, like some people put sugar or butter, things like that, and let the ribs cook in there. You need some moisture is the main thing. So we're going to put a 1/4 cup of apple juice in here with ours, and we're going to wrap it up nice and tight. And once we have that done, then we'll get it back out on the pit for 2 hours. So at this point, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to wrap them up and get them in a nice tight packet. So let's go ahead and do that. So to do that, we're going to fold our foil over like this and like this right here, so that we kind of make a packet, and then at this point we can pour our apple juice in here. And that apple juice just gives you, like I said, some moisture in there to help these ribs braise. So then we'll fold that down, fold it over, and we have our packet, just like that, nice and tight. And then you just take this packet and put it back on the pit for a couple of hours. I would check on it about at an hour mark, and then at an hour and 30, and then at 2 hours. And what you're looking for is those bones popping, and I'll show you that when I'm out there checking on them. I'll take you guys with me. All right, see you guys probably in about an hour to see how they're doing.
Alright, so our ribs have been in the foil about an hour. Let's take a look and see what the bones are looking like, see if they're starting to pop or not. A little bit. They're starting to pull away, but they still need quite a bit more. So we're going to go ahead and wrap them back. And we'll check back in another 30 minutes or so and see how things are going along. All right, let's take a look here. Whew. All right. Those are about ready. See how the bones are all popping out along there? I think that's about right. Oh, and I punched a hole. I can hear it draining out now. All right. Let me put my gloves on here, and we're going to put them on the pit, and then we're going to sauce them a little bit. Actually, I can probably just slide them out like this. Okay. Now, at this point, the ribs are pretty much done. They're going to be nice and tender, and you could pull them right now, but I like to smoke them about another 30 minutes to an hour to kind of firm them back up and get them that nice smoky look to them. As well as this time I like to sauce them. So if you just wanted to do like dry rub type ribs or make them look more like dry rub type ribs, you wouldn't sauce them. But I'm going to go ahead and sauce them because I do like a nice sauce on them. And I'm going to let that kind of caramelize on them over the next 30 minutes or so. And then we'll pull them off and we'll see how they are. All right. So I'm just going to let this really kind of caramelize on them for about 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and I'll pull them off and then we'll cut them and see what they look like. All right, we'll be back in a minute.
All right, so we got our ribs done. We cooked them for 3 hours. Let them get some smoke. Let them get a nice color. Then we wrapped them, and I had them wrapped for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And like I said, as you're looking at them, you need to check on them periodically, about after the first hour, and then every 30 minutes after that, maybe 15 minutes after that 30-minute check, to see when you start to see these bones popping out. So I'm gonna kind of turn down here, and you can see all these bones popping out. That's telling us that they're ready. So at this point, we unwrapped them, and then we put them back on the pit for another 30 to 45 minutes. And I sauced them at that point so I could get a sauce on there that was kind of caramelized. You could have just left them dry and not sauced them. Totally up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and cut them, and we're gonna see if they're ready. I'm fairly certain they are, and we'll take a bite and look and see if they come right off the bone like they should when you take a bite. So you can flip them upside down and cut them. I usually cut them like this, where I put them on the side and cut down. Completely up to you, however you want to cut them. I just typically do them this way. Follows the bone nicely. And I'm going to cut one more, and then we'll take a bite on one of them just to check and see if it pulls clean from the bone, which I'm sure it will. Alright, so there's our rib right there. Turn the camera back up at me, and let's see how this is. It's perfect, coming straight off the bone. Has a little bit of a pull. The bone doesn't slide just out. It still has a little bit of firmness, but the meat comes completely off the bone, and that's exactly how you want them. Alright guys, that's our 3-2-1 ribs. Let me know if you have any questions, leave me comments, and start a discussion. Subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. Thanks everybody.